Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this quick webinar on FP&A prep, interview prep using AI, brought to you by FP&A Professionals Institute. What are we going to cover today? So, a quick roadmap of today's session. We'll start by understanding how FP&A interviews are going to be different from your regular finance and accounting interviews. We'll also understand the three-step FP&A interview prep framework. There are three steps in that, and we'll spend 5 minutes on each of the steps to understand them a little bit better. And then we look at some practical use cases on how do you use AI or AI tools for your interview preparation. And it goes beyond just basic question and answers. Okay. Then of course in the end we'll have some time for Q&A to see any questions that you might have about today's session or about your FP&A careers in general. So the overall session will be for about 45 minutes. So I recommend all of you to get rid of distractions and let's focus on what we're trying to cover here today. So a little bit about us before we begin with. My name is Dhawal Parvatikar. I'm a qualified chartered accountant, close to 20 years of experience. I worked as CFO in India and in the Middle East. I'm now the co-founder and lead faculty at FP&A Professionals Institute. Over the last 6 years or so, I've been an active online trainer and a mentor. I've trained more than 5,000 professionals on various topics like FP&A, finance business partnering, data storytelling, one-to-one CFO career coaching, and much more. You will frequently see me in events across the Middle East. I'm based in Dubai. You will see me as a speaker, as a moderator in many of the CFO events across the Middle East. I've also built a vibrant community of more than 200 CFOs here in the Middle East where we meet every quarter, exchange ideas, and try and help each other out. My co-founder, Asif Masani, so again, comes with 15 plus years experience in various FP&A roles across leading multinational corporations. He's also a celebrated author, which you see those three books online. Both of us started FP&A Professionals Institute in 2022, and we have trained more than 6,000 students across all these programs that you see on the screen. CGFA program being our flagship 6-month certification program, which covers more than 25 case studies, 50 plus examples, and all the latest data analytics and AI tools as well to get you future ready in FP&A. So that's the CGFA program. We'll talk about it a little bit later in the day as well. Okay, so let's get started with today's session. Like I said, it will be for about 40 to 45 minutes. So get rid of all the distractions and let's dive into preparing for FP&A interviews. So I've asked dozens of CFOs and FP&A heads as to what is that one thing that you look for in a candidate? What is that one thing that you look for in a candidate? And I've got mixed answers, but one thing that I can tell you is all of those answers were rarely technical. Somebody said, I'm looking for initiative. Somebody said, I'm looking for attitude or energy. Somebody said, I'm looking for curiosity or enthusiasm. Somebody said, I'm looking for a cultural fit. When I used to take FP&A interviews or when I used to take interviews of finance candidates, I used to always look for one aspect, which was coachability. Can I coach this person? Will this person listen to me? Can I train this person with my company processes and the techniques that I want him to work on? Right. So these are all some of the softer aspects in an interview that one needs to be mindful of. It is not always your Excel skill sets or Power BI or all of these things. Those things probably today are considered a given. If you're giving an FP&A interview, they would assume that you know Excel financial modeling. They would assume that you already know a little bit of Power BI or any of the BI tools as well. So they would assume all of that. What they would be looking for in the candidate is initiative, attitude, enthusiasm, cultural fit, coachability. Can I train this person? So all of these softer aspects become equally important in today's interview as well. I'm going to share with you a quick 3-step interview preparation framework. And this has 3 steps in this. One is preparation, and then practice, and then execution. This is the 3-step framework that will help you prepare for your interview, FP&A interview in a very solid way. We'll spend not too much time. We'll spend about 2 to 3 minutes on each of these steps. And after we complete this framework, we will dive into 2 good use cases where I will show you how do you use AI tools to prepare for FP&A interviews. And then we look at some use case on how FP&A reporting or how FP&A is going to change with AI coming into the picture. Okay, I'll just give you a quick sneak peek of how your FP&A work is going to change with AI coming in. Okay, so let's get started. The first step is preparation, right? And preparation does not start with interview questions. Preparation starts with industry deep dive. Many times when I was giving interviews, I used to understand a little bit more about the industry, the drivers, the KPIs, who are the top competitors, what is the market share of the company that I'm giving interview in, right? So company deep dive, who's the management, what has been their last 3 years average growth, what could be the top three challenges that the company must be facing today, who are they facing a stiff competition from, where are they dominating, in which geography, in which product, right? All of these things are company deep dive. Okay, and an interviewer appreciates these things. Also study about the interviewer background. So it is your duty to ask the recruiter. Many times you get a call from a recruitment agency, or many times they will say, the recruiter will say that I've set up your interview with the FP&A head. But who is the FP&A head? What is his name? What is his background? What is his LinkedIn profile? You can ask a little bit more details. You can also study about the interviewer's background. What this will do is it will help you establish some kind of a common connect with the interviewer instantly when you get into the interview. For example, a couple of times I have tried to understand, and scan the interviewer's background and try and find some common connect of, or where I can connect with them instantly when I enter the room. For example, sometimes it could be that the person is also from IIM Ahmedabad. I've also studied for 1 year in IIM Ahmedabad. So let's say the person could be from Karnataka. My roots happen to be from Karnataka, so something like that. So try and find one common connect, which you can instantly break ice into, or you can bring that up later sometime in the interview as well, just to make sure that you're not trying to impress the interviewer unnecessarily, right? So many times after the interview conversation happened, I have come across and told the interviewer that, hey, by the way, just a curious question. I see that you come from North Karnataka. So where did you complete your college from? I am from so and so place. Right. So it just builds that instant connect as well. So try and study a little bit more about interviewer background as well, along with industry deep dive and company deep dive. On many occasions, you will also be giving interviews with the companies that you've never heard of before, right? Or you might have heard about the company for the first time. And on the website, you have no clue what the actual company does. In which case, sometimes you may have to go a little bit deeper, try to talk to a couple of employees or connections where you can understand more about the company or what the actual company is doing. And I've used a reverse uh, game, many times when I was working with a company whose name was also difficult to pronounce, and it was also difficult to understand from the website as to what the actual company was doing. In the interview, I've asked the candidate, so what do you understand about our company and what do you think we are doing? Right. And there are some interesting responses. Some get it right, some don't get it right. I should never judge the person on this question, but at least it gives me a comfort that this person has actually studied about my company. Yeah. So that is where industry deep dive and company deep dive can help you understand and answer better questions. So that's a little bit about the preparation part, preparation step. Then comes the practice bit, right? So practice is the most important step in any FP&A interview, or any interview for that matter, right? You can start with mock interviews. Mock interviews, typically you should be doing it with seniors. If not, at least do it with your peers, your friends, and try and say that, hey, here is a JD. Why don't you do a mock interview with me? Okay. So mock interview preparations are extremely important. If nobody is there, what you can also do is you can record yourself, okay, on your phone, and then look back at your answers. How did you answer them? Where did you miss out, or where you want to sharpen a little bit? Practice the answers very well. Practice the common interview questions very well, right? And we'll talk about some interview questions, but practice the answers very well. And it should appear natural, but also you should be aware of what the question might be, right? And learn to highlight analysis part in your experience. For example, I always hear from students or candidates that, I have never done FP&A in my life. So how do I convince the interviewer about my FP&A skill sets? Okay. Simple. Okay, you have not done FP&A in your life, but have you done any kind of analysis? For example, if you have if you're in an audit role currently and you're trying to switch into an FP&A profile, if you are an audit role currently and you're trying to switch into an FP&A profile, let's say you have done some revenue verification, revenue recognition verification in your audit role. Okay. So don't call it revenue verification. So call it revenue analysis. I'm pretty sure you must have done some analysis, some comparative analysis from current year versus previous year, current quarter. You might have analyzed some contracts, some POs. You might have analyzed something, right? So try and highlight that and bring it to the forefront of your resume and your interview. Yeah. Similarly, let's say in your audit role, you might have done payroll verification. Don't say payroll verification. You can say staff cost analysis. Okay. Even in your payroll verification during your audit exercise or audit engagement, you might have done some kind of analysis. You might have compared the increment percentages. You might have done current year versus last year payroll cost analysis. You might have done some kind of analysis, right? So try and highlight that part in your interview and in your resume wherever you get a chance. Right? So keep your discussions analysis focused. So these are some of the things, and every question, every single thing that is written in your resume needs to be practiced, right? If you're saying some kind of an analysis, then people might ask you what kind of analysis have you got. Okay, if you have, I mean, what kind of analysis have you done, or who are the stakeholders that you have interacted with during this analysis? So try and prepare for those questions as well. Okay, now there could be some common interview questions, and these interview questions are so basic that every time you find yourself giving a different answer. Okay, don't do that. And sometimes you may have to also prepare your answers in such a way that you highlight the strengths in the very first couple of sentences. Okay, now for example, if somebody tells you, asks you this question, typically your interview will start, okay, get comfortable, you say it, how are you, whatever, and then they'll say, okay, tell me something about yourself. This is your biggest opportunity to highlight your skill sets in the very first couple of sentences. Don't mess it up by saying, I am Dhawal Parvatikar, I'm a chartered accountant, I did this, I cleared my graduation in so and so year. Nobody cares. What are you bringing to the table? Cover that in the very first couple of sentences. For example, I used to usually, when I had about 3-4 years of experience, and when I used to go for finance manager kind of interviews, I used to answer this question in this way, right? And this is just an example. Yeah, I have to tailor it, but typically I have to answer this. Yeah, my name is Dhawal Parvatikar. I'm a qualified chartered accountant. Fortunately, in my previous roles, I have got an opportunity to work in business finance and in roles which had slimmer hierarchy. So I get to interact with senior executives a lot, understand my stakeholders, help them with financial decisions. Some of them being budgeting, forecasting, and variance analysis. So in the very first two sentences, I showed them what I bring to the table. I have my qualification. I can interact with senior guys. I have worked on budgeting, forecasting, and variance analysis. See, in the very first couple of sentences. So highlight this fact or bring your strengths to the very forefront in your tell me something about yourself. Don't waste it by saying, I am doing this, I am a qualified this. In 2000, I worked here. In 2002, I worked here. Nobody cares. They have seen it on your resume already. Second one is be careful about the behavioral questions. Now, these are your trick questions, right? So they'll tell you, uh, tell me about a time when you had a conflict with your boss. Okay, now that's a trick question. So how do you answer that? Or you will have to recollect or prepare for these kind of situations. Or the other behavioral question could be, tell me about a time where you handled a tough client or a stakeholder. Okay, the client was tough, he was rude. How did you handle it? Right. So
Hello.
prepare answers for these. Yeah, prepare answers for these, and you can just you know chat gpt these things. You can say, give me 20 behavioral questions that can be normally asked to an fp&a analyst. Chat gpt will give you and say, now give me the answers, and it'll give you the answers as well. So you can prepare those these behavioral questions as well. So many times what happens is that the candidates do not prepare enough for the behavioral questions and they get stuck. Okay, then they're not able to articulate what kind of stressful situations they've handled in the past. The next is strengths and weaknesses, right? So strengths and weaknesses, again, this could be you take multiple opportunities during your conversations to highlight strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, strengths being analysis or your stakeholder management skills or your business partnering skills. So try and highlight that and keep it organic. I mean, let it feel like it is coming naturally, that you are naturally answering these questions. Don't try and structure these answers so robotically that people might feel that, okay, you must have already by hearted what your strengths are or weaknesses are, right? So keep it a little bit organic and change it according to the context. Prepare 2 to 3 good stories of your achievements in your prior roles. Now this is beyond your responsibility. Okay, responsibility is not equal to achievement. You handling or preparing a budget successfully or handling a statutory audit successfully is not achievement. Achievement is where you are able to go above and beyond, right? You are able to successfully deliver something, or you are able to save something, transform something, improve some processes, build SOPs, whatever you might have done. You might have done an ERP implementation, you might have done an EPM implementation, right? Any good 2 to 3 achievements. It need not always be a revolutionary cost saving idea that I saved $100 million for my company. No, Right? It can be very simple that I optimize this process. We were able to save 5 man days on this particular process. The contracts were not in one place. I helped standardize the contract management process. So these kind of basic things are something which are expected of you, which feel authentic. And I'm pretty sure you must have done something in your career, right, to build these 2 or 3 stories as achievements. So these are a little bit about common interview questions and the traps that you might fall into. So make sure that you are careful about these questions and use them to your advantage, to your strengths as well. Next one is execution, right? So in execution, so there are multiple steps. One is, of course, the hygiene. Be on time, prepare, take your extra print resume, extra printouts of your resume, right? Make sure that you know who is interviewing you, right? You reach 15, 20 minutes early, freshen up, drink water, calm down, right? To calm your nerves as well. So try and do all of that, okay? And connect everything that how you can help the company and the interviewer. For example, if the interviewer does not tell you what tool they are using, okay, of course, in a question you can ask him that, by the way, if you don't mind me telling, what kind of an FP&A tool are we using? Let's say if the interviewer says we are using Power BI, then you can connect your prior Power BI experience, and then he'll say that, okay, that's interesting because I've done some automation in Power BI, or I use Power BI for analyzing XYZ in my previous company. So you can try and connect some of your previous knowledge or previous understanding to what the company or the interviewer is looking for as well. The third point is asking 2 to 3 questions. And this, according to me, at least for me when I was interviewing candidates, this was the most powerful evaluating criteria for me when I was interviewing candidates. After the routine of the questions, tell me something about yourself, then I'm looking at the resume, I'm asking a few questions, trying to decode whether this candidate is the right fit for my company or no. And then comes a point where if the candidate has already been asking questions, then that's a good sign for me. Okay. If the candidate has not asked me any questions at all and just answering only to the questions that I have asked him, then in the end, I used to always tell the candidate that, okay, do you have any questions for me? Okay. Now that's a quality check for me. Sometimes the answers were answers had a very wide spectrum. So sometimes the answers were as stupid as, what is the office timing? Do I have to come on a Friday? Is it hybrid working, work from home, whatever? Right. So all these are stupid questions which can be found out on the internet as well. Okay. But what I was actually looking for is questions like, or when I prepared for interviews, right, I used to ask questions like, what tool are we using, or what EPM tool are we using, or what ERP are we using? Okay, so that's the number one question. Number two, what do you think are the top 3 priorities in this role? Or what do you think are the top 3 things that you want me to immediately fix in this role, or immediately take up in this role? Or other intelligent question is, how do you think the first 3 months and the next 6 months look like in this role? I want to kind of understand what this role is about. But yes, you have given a JD. Everybody gives a long JD, but the actual job happens to be something else, right? So I want to slightly understand behind that JD document as to what am I going to actually exactly do. Right? How does the first 3 months and the next 6 months look like in this role? Now that's an intelligent question to ask. So asking these questions gives you 2 things. One is the interviewer also gets confidence that, okay, this person is asking the right kind of questions. He's interested in my company, or he's interested in the role, is curious about the role. The second thing is you also get to know, okay, exactly what is the role about, or what kind of a tool scenario we're in. And when I was interviewing for managerial roles, I used to ask, how big is the team? Will I have a team? Or who will I be reporting to? Do I need to train any juniors? So that was a good insight, right? Many times they will publish as finance manager role. When you land up in the interview, they'll say, no, this is an individual contributor role. Why did you publish it as finance manager role? Right? So it also gives me a sneak peek into what the actual role is. Right? Is it a manager for namesake, or is there really a 1 or 2 member team that I can manage? So these are the kind of questions that you can also ask. The fourth point is sending a thank you note and follow up, and this is highly, I think, underrated, right? So no matter how the interview goes, it's important that you follow it up with a thank you note on the immediate next day, saying that thank you for the interview. I really enjoyed these 1 or 2, 3 points that we discussed. Looking forward to hearing back from you, right? A simple sentence, not a long copy paste from ChatGPT, right? A simple heart-to-heart conversation, right? So simple email makes a lot of makes a good impression that you are actually interested in the company as well.
Hello.
Hello, Bikash, are you saying something? Okay, I'm muted. So a simple thank you note makes a lot of difference as well, and it gives that delight to the interviewer. Yeah. So these are some of the basics on the execution bit. Okay. Now, after understanding the basics of interviews, right? So let's get into understanding how do you use AI for FP&A interviews, and I'll cover a couple of interview use cases. The first use case is preparing for a fintech interview, and this happened with one of my students. He was based in Africa, in one of the countries, and then he got a call from a recruitment consultant or recruitment agency, and he said there's a confidential position. I can't reveal the company name, but this is one of the largest fintech companies in Africa, and I'm setting up the first round of interview with you. Okay, so let me just quickly share. So now, interview preparation for a fintech company can have very specific requirements, right? Or specific. So let me just bring up that use case. So it can have very specific questions or specific kind of requirement as well. So which I was also not fully aware of, because I never worked with a fintech company in my career, right? So what we did was we used ChatGPT to kind of quickly brainstorm this, and we did this together. I'm not saying this is the only way you can use AI or ChatGPT to preparing interview, but this is one of the ways or one of the use cases that I would like to share. Said we got the JD. So the confidential company at this point in time, we did not know the company name. I said, help me prepare for the interview with this JD of a fintech company. So we pasted the copy pasted the JD, okay, and then it started giving us all the information that here's a complete preparation plan, role and understanding. What does this role involve? Key responsibilities like strategic business partnering, FP&A, decision support, and investment appraisal. So these are some of the things which are required. Again, ChatGPT started giving on its own, right? So likely technical questions. You know, what do you think are the financial metrics or commercial KPIs? Like ideal answer would be explaining the average revenue per user into volume or driver-based models. Decision support. How will you evaluate marketing ROI and campaign effectiveness? Because in a fintech company, cost of customer acquisition can be one of the important costs, which is dependent on your marketing ROI, right? So how do you evaluate marketing ROI? Okay, how do you challenge and support sales leaders? So these are some of the technical questions that it started asking. Okay. Then on its own, it gave behavioral questions. I was talking about the behavioral questions, right? Tell me about a time when you influenced a commercial leader and changed a decision. You know, describe how you handled conflicting priorities between finance and sales. How did you identify and deliver cost optimization opportunity? See, these are all behavioral questions or leadership related questions which you might have to prepare on or try and visualize your situation or the kind of experience that you might have worked on in the past. Okay, next is key metrics. According to ChatGPT, these are the 10 key metrics that would be involved: ARPU, CAC, churn rate, long-term customer, lifetime customer value. These are the top 10 KPIs. So again, a 2-minute elevator pitch. I'm a finance leader with extensive FP&A experience. Now, this is giving a sample pitch, but this was like a managerial role, but not like a senior leadership role. So you can prepare your 2-minute elevator pitch accordingly. Yeah. Over the years, I've led budgeting, forecasting. The exact same point that I was also mentioning to you, right? In the very first couple of sentences, try and bring your strengths to the table. What are you bringing to the table? Then questions you should ask them. What are the questions that you should ask them? Right? How does the finance business partnering integrate with commercial leadership? What are the key revenue drivers or KPIs? How does the company measure success for this role beyond traditional financial metrics? Right? So all of these things are something which ChatGPT started giving on its own. Then we came to know the interviewer gave one of the information, the recruitment consultant, was that it was a mobile money app. Mobile money app. So then we said, okay, how does a mobile money app make revenue, or what could be the possible avenues? Okay, so then it gave the core revenue stream for a mobile money app: transaction fees, merchant payments, airtime and utility payments, cross-border remittances. These are all some of the different kind of revenue sources for a mobile money app, right? It started giving us more information. Okay, what are the indirect and strategic revenue drivers? Typical revenue mix of a mature mobile money business, right? P2P transfer, merchant payments, right? So till this time, we did not know what the company name was. All we knew was that they were big into mobile money, yeah, or it was a kind of a payments app, yeah. Then how to use this in the interview, right? So all of these things are there. Then assuming lending services is prominent, how do we as FP&A forecast revenue for this item? Let's say, for example, they are a mobile money app, but they are also big on P2P lending or BNPL, buy now pay later, or micro loans as well, right? So many of these fintech apps also do like micro loans or salary loans or whatever, like or cash advances. So These are some of the things. So what are the KPIs or key revenue drivers there? So number of active borrowers, average loan size, loan frequency, interest rate, tenure, all these are the KPIs that we can, of course, learn. And how does the basic formula for computing this looks like? It gave us all this information. Yeah, forecasting approach, average loan size, what are the number of active borrowers on the app, right? All of these things are becoming important as KPIs. Yeah. Key levers as an FP&A partner. Again, I did not ask any of these, right? I just said, how does a mobile money app work? And it is giving me all these information on its own. Then finally, the just before the interview day, the recruitment agency revealed the company name, and it was MTN Mobile Money app in Uganda. Okay. And then we said, okay, I'm doing an interview with MTN Mobile Money app in Uganda. Act as a CFO of this company and ask me the questions for the JD that I had shared. Okay. And then perfect, let's simulate this properly. I'll play the role of CFO of MTN Mobile Money Uganda, because it started asking us questions as well, right? Commercial and finance partnering related questions, right? Then comes FP&A forecasting reported relation questions. Then comes governance, data systems related questions. Okay. It gave us a bunch of about 15, 20 questions. Not all of them might be important, but from a preparation standpoint, we have to prepare for all the questions as well. Okay. Now I said, okay, great. These questions look great. Now give me the answers for these questions, right? So questions are great, but we might not be knowing all the answers. Okay. So give us the answers for these questions. Again, it gave us an interview playbook, so it started giving us some answers as well. Now, these answers can, of course, be tailored according to our exposure. Now, it need not always be like a mugged up answer, right? So these answers are only for references. You can refer them and then tailor your own answers and be prepared as well. Okay. So these are some of the questions, about 20 questions it gave, and then the answers also along with it. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So these are some of the things. And again, I asked the student also to say, okay, give me 10 behavioral questions that the CFO might ask me, and also some tentative answers to it. Behavioral questions around team, stakeholder management, handling a tough stakeholder, meeting deadlines, or missing a deadline, anything, anything. So take me through a situation where you missed a deadline, and how did you deal with it? Now this is a behavioral question. So for example, when I was interviewing candidates, my favorite behavioral question was, take me through a situation where you had a conflict or an argument with your boss. Okay. Now, first of all, this puts a smile on the candidate's face, and then the candidate starts thinking, when did he have the last argument with his boss? And then they tell some story that this was the case. I was saying the accrual should be this, but the boss was saying accrual should be this. Accrual should not be there. Whatever. Whatever it could be the situation. Then I followed up with a question saying, who won this argument? Sometimes some candidates used to say I won the argument, I was right, but my boss was wrong, or my boss was right, but I was wrong, whatever. But the real answer that I'm looking for is a slightly diplomatic answer. The answer actually is that it's not about me winning or my boss winning. Right? Both of us are thinking about the company. It is what is right from an accounting treatment standpoint. It is what is right from the company policy standpoint, and what is right for the company. Okay. Whether I win or my boss win, we are both in the same team. Now that's a diplomatic answer, right? So these are the kind of behavioral questions that you will have to prepare and try and talk at the principal level, at the conceptual level, right? Don't make it about me or about him or about the company. Like, for example, one of the classic questions is, why did you leave your previous job? You will say blah, 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 better opportunity, something. Okay. So then there, they might particularly ask you or poke you with some questions where you will answer about your previous company in a negative way. That's what they want to understand. That are you bad mouthing your previous company for whatever reason? Yeah, or you bad mouthing your previous manager, politics, whatever, right? But what they are actually looking for is a political answer. Talk about the principle. It's not about which company I am in. It's always about the growth. I have worked for 3 years in this role. I'm now looking for a senior analyst role. Right? So make it about principle. Make it about you and not about somebody else or the manager or the company. Don't play that blame game. Yeah? Talk about the principle, talk about the policy. So these are some of the behavioral questions. So again, this is one of the use cases where we had used AI to prepare for the fintech role. The interview went very well, and my student was able to be in the top 2 or 3 candidates for it. I don't know what happened after that. I'm yet to hear back from him. Cool. So this was one of the cases. Then I'll show you another case. Again, this is more like a mock-up case, right? So FP&A interview insights. So Do you mean in a diplomatic question, prefer to arrive at mutual consensus viewpoint? Not necessarily. Like I said, it's better to keep it at the principal level. You know, I don't want to also say that my boss was wrong or I was right. Maybe you were right, but in that context, telling that you were right and your boss was wrong, may come across as that you are not coachable or you are not uh, ready to listen to something, right? Or not ready to, or you're not open to listening to experienced guys. So it may be interpreted that way. So it's better to keep it at a principal level, at a diplomatic level. Why get into who's winning? Am I winning or my boss is winning? It's about the company, what is right for the company. Yeah. So keep it at the principal level where they cannot argue. I mean, where they cannot dispute whether your answer was the right or wrong answer. Cool. So let's move into the next. This is more like a mock-up situation as well. Um, let's say there's a company called Persistent Systems Limited. It is based out of Pune in India. It's again a multi-billion-dollar company, very well-known software company in India. Okay, so here is the annual report, which is probably a 229, 250 pages annual report. Okay, let's assume that you are giving an FP&A manager role for Persistent Systems. Okay, it's a listed company, and so the annual report is available. So I am uploading the annual report of Persistent Systems Limited. I'm preparing for an FP&A manager interview at Persistent. Give me 5 points from the annual report that I should be aware of. Also, can you summarize the management discussion and analysis section, MDA section, on page 229 into 5 to 10 key bullet points? Now, typically what happened was, and it happened a couple of times with me when I was giving interviews, okay? At that time, there was no chat GPT, there was no there was no tools to kind of analyze the financial reports or annual reports. I mean, of course, when I gave the listed company interviews, I used to read something, but still, it's a 200, 300 page annual report. How will you analyze everything? Okay, so a couple of times, the general manager finance or the VP finance asked me a question. Can you tell me a couple of red flags that you notice in our annual report? It's a 300-page report. I have absolutely no clue what the red flag is. I used to only tell about the financials, that I noticed that your gross margin is coming down in the last year, or I noticed that your net profit has come down, or EPS has come down, whatever. Whatever I could analyze, maybe top 4 or 5 points from the financial statements. But today with AI, you have so much power in your hands to analyze so many different levels and see how deep we have gone into this particular case study. Okay. So you can say five, you can start with asking a basic question saying that give me 5 points from the annual report that I should be aware of. Okay. And summarize the management discussion and analysis section. So because in an FP&A role, right, you will not be questioned about your IFRS or your technical accounting or consolidation skills, right? You will be asked about business. You'll be asked about the industry. You'll be asked about the KPIs. So that is where the MDA section becomes important. And it also gives you a view of what the management is thinking about the industry or the company as a whole. So 5 critical points that you must know from an FP&A lens. Okay. Strong growth momentum. Company's revenue is this. 20 consecutive quarters of growth. 20 consecutive quarters of growth in the company. Okay. Now, no matter what kind of annual report you download, without an AI tool, you cannot understand this. Can you analyze 20 quarters, or probably that's basically 5 years of financial statements that you won't be able to analyze, or you won't be able to download 5 years of annual reports and analyze all of these things. Okay. PAT growth at 28% year on year, right? Interview angle, Persistent is not just growing, it is delivering consistent compounding growth, which means FP&A plays a strong role in forecast accuracy and execution discipline. Now, see the kind of insight that ChatGPT is able to give you, right? So if somebody asks you, okay, what did you observe in our annual report, or what do you know about Persistent? You can say it's a leading technology company in India. What is also special about Persistent's financials is that we have delivered 20 consecutive quarters of growth. I mean, of course, you can do a quick test check. Whatever ChatGPT is giving you, don't blindly believe it. You can spend 10 minutes to do a quick test check as to whether there has been consecutive revenue growth in 20 years, 20 quarters. Okay. But this is an insight that gave, which will help you to build an answer as well. Clear strategic bet, AI-led transformation. Everywhere in the annual report, they are talking about initiatives that they've done on AI. AI this, AI that. We have done this in AI. We have done that in AI. This collaboration, that collaboration. Right. So they are already leading in terms of the AI-led transformation. So that can be an insight that can come from the annual report. Okay. Shift from platform to high-value services. Again, that is something which they have been moving towards. Right. It's not the margin expansion stories. Platform revenues typically scale better than services, right? So they are going to for some platform-led model rather than a technology services model. Strong deal pipeline and ACV growth. So deal pipeline, and in a services business, your new business pipeline is equally important. Okay, so this is a new business pipeline that's coming. Healthy new business pipeline. You can say, you need not even say 1.46 billion if you're not very sure about it. New business pipeline is actually an internal document. So it's better to say that, okay, healthy new business pipeline. Yeah. Talent strategy. There are 24,500 employees in a heavy employment in AI skills. On a number of occasions in their annual report, they have said, we are reskilling our employees in AI. We have done these many certifications. We have trained these many AI employees, whatever, right? So all of that can be just summed up in one line. Yeah. Now, MDA summary. Okay, what are they thinking about the industry outlook? Clear shifts in value creation via AI. What are the business performance drivers? Cloud data and AI offerings are leading. What are the strategic priorities? Product services, internal operations, expanding to platform-based services, right? Automation through AI. What are the key risks? Talent acquisition and wage inflation, currency fluctuations. Because there are 80-90% exports, currency fluctuation can be one of the risks, right? So operational focus, automation. So all of these are some of the things. Now, how do you use this for the interview? Again, ChatGPT itself is giving all of these things. What do you know about Persistent? Now, this can be a question that might come from the general manager of finance or VP finance or whoever. Say, what do you know about Persistent? You can say Persistent is transitioning from IT services to platform-driven business, 20 quarters of consistent growth, blah, blah, blah. Yeah? You can ask about this. So does the MDA have any financial insights? You have not captured any numbers in your bullet points that you have shared. So if you look at the MDA summary that ChatGPT shared, it did not use any numbers. And I wanted to see some numbers. So that's why I said, does the MDA have any financial insights? You have not captured any numbers in your bullet points that you have shared. Great catch. Great catch. And honestly, this is exactly how FP&A managers should think, blah, blah, blah. Basically, it's trying to cover up its own mistake. Then it gave me some financial insights from MDA. Reconstruct into FP&A thinking. So revenue is this, compounded annual growth is this, profitability expansion, deal momentum, margin shift, cost structure. Give me some financial insights, which is okay. Most candidates miss your differentiator, that AI investments are happening, platform revenue is happening, right? Which otherwise would be difficult to, even if you read the annual report, which otherwise would be difficult to summarize or decode as to what the company has actually been doing. Okay, help me with exact FP&A KPIs Persistent to track internally. Okay, now what are those? Revenue and growth KPIs, revenue by vertical, revenue by service line. Okay, revenue mix percentage, top 10 client revenue concentration, new versus existing client revenue split, deal pipeline, contract value, bookings growth, pipeline conversion ratio or coverage ratio, right? So margin and profitability, gross margins per client, margin by service line, margin by geography, project level profitability, right? So in many cases, they must be executing large software projects. So project level profitability becomes important, right? Billable utilization versus revenue per employee. So in a services company, it's very important to make sure that all the resources are billable or at maximum as much billable as possible, right? So the companies aim for 90% billability, 80% billability, depending on the designation. So what is the billability percentage, bench strength? All of these are your different KPIs, right? Cost per employee, revenue per employee. So these are all your KPIs that a software services company would track. Okay, some more KPIs here. Okay. Any red flags in the financial statements of the company? Excellent. This is exactly what the kind of question separates a good candidate from a CFO track thinker. I'll give you a balanced, intelligent answer, not a negative answer, but an analytical nuance, right? Which the interviewers expect. Okay, so potential red flags in Persistent systems: high dependence on talent. So many employees are there. Investment, wage inflation could be a problem. Okay, AI investment to monetization. Now, yes, we have invested in AI platforms, but when are we actually going to realize the ROI? Right? Are we really going to meet the timeline on the ROI? So all of these things. Margin expansion, right? Revenue concentration risk. What if 80% of my revenue is coming from top 20 clients? Even though I might have 800 clients, what if my top 20 clients are contributing to 80% of my revenue, which means there is revenue concentration risk. If I lose one of my top 20 clients, then I'll be in big trouble. Out of those 24,500 employees, I may have to let go of 500 employees who are working on one of those biggest clients, right? That could be a risk as well, right? So these are some of the risks. Again, multiple red flags as well, not particularly red flags, but I think AI investment into return and return on investments is still probably a question mark in the company. Yeah. Then for the first 4 points that you mentioned, how are the comparable companies in India doing? Can you research about it and give me a tabular comparison? So it gave me these first 4 points, right? So high dependence on talent, AI investment. Now I understood that these are the red flags or probably the problems that the company might be facing, but I also want to know what are the competitors doing about this. Okay. So it's a practical comparison. I'll give you this comparison, blah, blah, blah. I'll compare Coforge, L&T, Mindtree, and Emphasis. These are the competing companies, right? So what are they doing on each of them? On talent cost, what is Persistent doing? What is Coforge, Mindtree, Emphasis doing? On AI investment versus monetization, what are these companies doing? On margin expansion, what are these companies doing? And on client concentration, what are these companies doing? So see, in Persistent, client concentration is moderate. Okay. Whereas this company, Emphasis, has highest client concentration risk. 55% of the revenue is coming from top 10 clients. Whereas in Persistent, it is moderate. 31% of the revenue is coming from top 10 clients. Now, these kind of insights, where will you get these kind of insights? Imagine AI not being there. It's impossible to get these kind of insights. No matter you'll have to analyze, even if you analyze 4 annual reports, even if I give you 3 months to analyze these 4 annual reports, still coming up with these kind of insights would be very difficult. So what this means for the interview, simple ranking by points, blah, 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 right? So again, you can ask as many questions as possible based on the annual report or possible questions. I can ask the same questions as well. What do you think would be the top 10 questions in FP&A? What would be the top 10 behavioral questions that Persistent might ask me? You can ask these kind of questions to ChatGPT and it will answer some of the questions as well. This is how you can kind of supercharge your interview preparation using AI. We have just used ChatGPT, but you can use other tools also like Claude, Manus, any of these other tools as well. All right. So I think we are slightly out of time, but I may not have time to do the third use case. But let's get into the next section and also have some time for Q&A as well. Okay. So now that you understand some use of AI, right? So this is just something which we used AI for basic stuff, right? Which is interview preparation. Imagine you can using it for automation, variance reports, right? Building your management reports, management commentaries, all of these. We have been using AI actively for all of these things in FP&A, right? So imagine grabbing an opportunity in the FP&A function, which is high paying, right? So what we have done over the years at FPI is we have built a solid certification program. It's called the Certified Global FP&A Program, the CGFP program. It's a global FP&A certification built and delivered directly by CFOs and FP&A leaders, FP&A practitioners. It has 10 comprehensive modules, which I'll talk about it in a while. Everything through experiential sessions, simulations, real life looking like case studies, real life data looking like data, right? And then you'll also be part of a global alumni network. CGFP program has been taken by students from more than 25 countries so far. You'll get sessions with a personalized career coach, placement support in terms of your resume review, interview preparation, mock interview sessions. We also have our own portal. It's called fpnajobs.com. We were trying to bring recruiters and talent on one platform. Again, it's not a guarantee, but at least we try and do everything in our power to help you kind of get placed as well. We've also been trying to sign some MOUs with some recruiters to get internships for our CGFP students as well. Right. So monthly Q&A sessions where you can ask any questions directly to the faculty. External speaker sessions globally, top FP&A experts, tool providers, tool companies, AI companies, they all come to FPI for sharing their knowledge. And that you get all of these by sitting at the comfort of your home through best-in-class online LMS. The live sessions are conducted on Zoom. All you need to spend is about 4 to 5 hours every week to complete the CGFP program. There's 10 comprehensive modules. I'll quickly cover these. In introduction starts with understanding different types of role in FP&A. How does a typical FP&A calendar look like? What are the different types of activities in FP&A? And also an FP&A implementation case study where you will understand and set up an FP&A function in a company in a mock environment. Budgeting and forecasting. Everything, all the popular techniques around budgeting, your top-down, bottom-up budgeting, incremental, zero-based budgeting, different case studies around different industries, one on retail, one on services companies, one on manufacturing. So we're covering multiple kind of budgeting case studies as well. Similarly, on the forecasting, preparing your forecast, driver-based planning, all of these things are covered in the forecasting case studies as well, along with techniques and practical examples. AI in finance and FP&A. Again, this is the module that has been building every quarter, and we are quite surprised by the kind of evolution this module has seen. Now we're covering all the popular tools like ChatGPT. We're covering Claude. We're covering Manus. We're covering Copilot. Again, with specific FP&A use cases, right? Not generic use cases, but specific FP&A use cases. Management reporting. is different types of reports, your monthly report, quarterly report, flash report, risk and opportunities report, different types of variance analysis, profitability analysis, all of that is covered in management reporting. Performance management frameworks like OKRs, KPIs, balance scorecards, all of that is in management reporting. Then comes financial modeling. Financial modeling specific to FP&A, right? Your revenue models, cost models, scenario planning, sensitivity analysis, all of these things, seasonality, trends, all of these things are part of financial modeling, including the three-statement financial model. Again, this is modeling specific to FP&A, not related to valuations or investment banking or equity research. Then comes equity data analytics. Data analytics, again, you will be dealing with large sets of data in your FP&A roles. That's where we're covering all the popular tools like Power BI, Power Query, Tableau, and we've also introduced Python and SQL now as well in data analytics module. Again, will you be expert in these tools in the program? No, we don't claim to make you that, but at least we'll take you to a level where you are comfortable to use these tools in your day-to-day FP&A roles. You will be quite surprised as to how many people have been able to do a lot of mundane Excel tasks that they were getting worried about, right? They were able to simply do it with a click on Power BI, right? So that's how you get comfortable with these tools on a day-to-day basis. Then financial analysis in different kind of analysis. See, financial analysis is not just about ratio analysis. Internally, from a company standpoint, a CFO and his team does a lot of different kind of analysis. Horizontal, vertical analysis, margin mix analysis, right? Or product volume variance. All of these things are part of financial analysis. Storytelling and presentations. Yes, you can analyze 10,000 lines of Excel sheets, but how will you present that in a simple insight to the business stakeholders, to your general manager, to your VP sales? That is where storytelling and presentations come into play. Remember, storytelling is not about dashboards. Dashboards are still graphs, right? Story is where you are able to communicate an insight with a narrative so that the decision maker or the stakeholder can act accordingly. That is what is storytelling is. And we are covering presentation best practices as to budget presentation, what do you include, what do you not include, different chart types, waterfall chart, bubble chart, bar chart, stacked bar chart, pie chart. All of these things are covered in the storytelling and presentations module. Do we have AI for financial modeling? Of course, we are covering quite a number of financial modeling examples using AI in the AI FP&A module. Then comes strategy. Now, again, strategy is a very interestingly positioned module. As and when you become senior in your organization, you can't use strategic terms in a very loose way, right? That's where you need to understand all the popular strategic frameworks and tools, and also understand how FP&A is contributing to these strategic financial decisions. That's why we're covering all the popular strategic tools along with practical FP&A examples as to how FP&A can contribute to these strategic decisions in the company. Then business partnering, again, your business acumen, your ability to build strong cross-functional relationships. Through 7 to 8 case studies that Asif and I have worked in our careers, we're telling you how you can truly collaborate with HR, business development, IT teams, supply chain team in the company. So multiple examples on business partnering. Okay. So this is, don't just think about CGFP as a course. This is 20 years of our blood, sweat, and tears, covered into a compact 6-month program, which can easily fast track your finance career by a few years. Because for you to understand all of these things by your own experience, it will at least take you a decade to understand, right? So that's where a program like this can be, a highly practical program like this can be very beneficial. How many case studies? Or roughly about 25 bigger case studies, about 50 plus smaller examples here and there, 10 plus activities, tools, and frameworks. And you end with a one guided capstone project in month number 6, which is around end-to-end budget presentation, preparation and presentation for a CFO. We're covering all the popular data analysis tools. I already mentioned that. We're covering the AI tools, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, and agentic AI tool called Manus. We're covering all of these tools with specifically FP&A use cases in the program. Okay, so truly to make you future ready in FP&A. Now, what is the eligibility for this program? You need to have a minimum of a bachelor's degree or a global equivalent in finance, accounting, or business. Alternatively, you may have any of your professional qualifications like CA, CMA, CPA, ACCA, or any accounting qualification of your country. We don't claim to be a substitute for these primary accounting qualifications. In fact, we are a supplement to these qualifications because what we are teaching is highly practical and they are not taught in your accounting qualifications. We're also accredited by CPD UK. How do you get the CGFP award? 3 things. One is in the live classes, you need to attend at least 50% of the classes live. 50% attendance is compulsory. Okay, Saturday, 2 hours is the core modules in which the attendance is compulsory. Sunday is the tool track. Okay, I'll tell you the details about it. Then you submit the capstone. Again, it's an optional capstone, but recommended. Once you submit the capstone somewhere in month number 6, That will make you eligible for the final examination. The final examination is a 2 hours, 100 marks, 50 questions, multiple choice questions type examination, which is conducted on a third party platform. It's a live examination. The date and timing and everything will be given to you beforehand. Mock test, mock exams, everything will be given to you beforehand. So don't worry too much about the examinations. Once you pass that examination, minimum 50% passing marks, you'll be getting the CGFP award from FP&A Professionals Institute. The course fee investment in this program is USD 1795. You can pay that over 5 months as well. The total course duration will be for 6 months. About 5 to 6 hours of your time commitment is required. 4 hours in the live classes on Saturdays, 2 hours, and Sunday, 2 hours. And then about 60 to 90 minutes of your own time investment is required for you to sometimes go through a case study or sometimes go through some pre-reading material that we might share and then complete that and come to the classroom as well. The next cohort is starting on the 4th of July, which is a Saturday at 8 p.m. IST. 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. IST is the next cohort. 13 June was the orientation date, so we already completed one round of orientation. The final screening of applications and everything is going on right now. So what I would recommend is that you complete the application. The application process is completely free of cost, right? So once you complete the application, our academic counselors will reach out to you. They'll check the eligibility. They'll also give you any early bird offer or anything that is going on at that point in time. You can also ask demo lecturers. You can also reach out to our previous alumni. They can share phone numbers with you as well to reach out to our alumni. So do your own due diligence and then take a call. Don't just enroll it into because we are telling you to do it. Truly evaluate whether this is the right course for you. Go through the demo lectures, go through a lot of webinar recordings that we have on YouTube. So go through them and then decide if this is truly for you. Okay. Irrespective of what you decide, you should create a profile on fpnajobs.com. So this is where we are trying to bring recruiters and candidates on one platform. Make sure that you create a detailed profile on fpnajobs.com. Hopefully your next opportunity will come from there. Okay. Again, a quick reminder, the last round of applications are closing tomorrow, 26th of June, 2026. That's when the applications are closing. Yeah, complete the application process and let our academic counselors review your eligibility. So I wish you guys all the very best in your finance careers, and hopefully I'll see you in one of our programs or any of the next webinars that we are doing. So keep learning, keep growing. All the best. Bye-bye.